Tell us what's our situation right now.
Well, Andrew Wee's the behind the camera, and I, AJ Wilkie, woke up at 3 a.m. and drove 3 hours to be here for the sun. And Talon lives like 20 minutes away, and he's not here. He's an hour late. So that's what we're doing.
That's the vibes. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's our annual reunion. So I've been waiting forever for this box and the other box that I just pulled out for it's not forever, for 2 weeks. And this box contains a roll of T-Max 400 that I shot almost 2 months ago. Now, shooting black and white isn't my go-to choice for film per se. I really enjoy shooting on color film because to me there is much more that can be captured on color film than black and white film, and I know that some people will probably get on me for that. That is just how I feel, right? Like, the colors are more vibrant, you get that pop, especially with a lot of Kodak films. What's weird is, like, if you would shoot black and white, like, I assume most people would probably choose like an Ilford. But for me, I decided to go with T-Max 400 because that is the cheapest film that I had at the time. And what I was doing specifically was actually conducting an experiment with the black and white film. One time I tried shooting on color film while backcountry skiing. It turned out very horrible. The biggest problem was I didn't really know how to expose for snow, and I didn't really think about this idea of exposing for snow. You see, I just picked up this camera right here, right? It's a Pentax K1000, and I have been using the light meter that's inside of the viewfinder to basically expose all my shots. What I didn't think about and what I didn't realize is that there's several different kinds of metering systems, which the other thing is that when you're shooting in snow, something that's already white, you need to expose differently than you would say like shooting in a daylight environment or like indoors. I didn't realize this, and to my detriment, the photos that I thought were gonna be so stinking cool came out completely trash. As you may have noticed, or not noticed, that transition has me in a completely different outfit. And that is because I'm filming on a completely different day. As it turns out, when you have a child, you might not get all the creative things that you want done in one day. But nonetheless, I am glad to see you again. In my previous examples, you can see that the darks are completely crushed. Last time I was shooting in the snow, I was using Kodak Ultramax 400. I just threw in a color film, seeing what would happen. Needless to say, I was disappointed with the results. I had this grand vision of what backcountry skiing photos could look like, and I did not fulfill those dreams whatsoever. Just like my parents' desire for me to be an engineer, so too I failed that as well. The difficulty in shooting box speed with that kind of film is that your exposure level is going to be based on how much light is entering the light meter, obviously. But in the snow, because everything is so bright and so white, basically everything needs to be compensated for, right? So that you can get the detail. Otherwise, your snow is going to become like, on the scale of like white to black, it's going to be a gray, which means that anything else that's on the snow that you would normally have exposed for something higher is going to be far darker. Right, so all these shots are so dark. Also, it doesn't help that I'm shooting straight into the sun and also not thinking of compensation like that. So, to help me out this next time, one, I chose not to go with a color film so that I could only focus on one variable, which was the exposure from white to black. And then, in addition to that, I used this app called Light Meter. It allows me to meter the light using the camera on my phone. So the difficulty in that is that I didn't use any of those things. I kind of was just shooting, like running and gunning, or skiing and gunning, biathloning. It's really hard to capture sports with an analog camera, is what I've also learned, especially something like skiing, where people are constantly being obscured by snow, or like they're moving in a different direction than you anticipate them being in. This time I went around better prepared for what was to come. So what do we actually do though from like a skiing perspective? So my two best friends and I, we decided to meet up in Colorado, where we decided to ski this area called Mayflower Gulch, fairly accessible, pretty well known. Within 10 minutes we were in view of this majestic mountain scenery, very picturesque. It reminded me of something I would see from Lord of the Rings. In between making a bunch of Dune references, I was snapping photos of my friends as we were touring up. Talon didn't have any poles, so we gave him one pole each, leaving us to only use one pole each, which wasn't too bad. So in order to scale up to a safe skiable area, we decided to follow a previous pair of skin tracks from people we assume were already in there, and that ended up being all right until the tracks sort of just stopped because it was covered in snow and were being obliterated by the wind at the top. But the tour itself, that only took maybe 25 minutes, 30 minutes top. It was indicative of my health, that's for sure, and I was pushing P. Looking at the elevation and the angle of the slopes, we decided to pick a safe route down in order to minimize the avalanche risk. So to our dismay, the top section was pretty windblown and drifted, and there was some crust, but then as we descended it became really nice and buttery. I wish I was better at using a GoPro as well, but that's fine. I mean, I can use a GoPro. The problem is I don't know how to mount it well and make it look all cinematic like the other folks do on Instagram. Honestly, it was some of the best skiing I have ever experienced in the backcountry, and my experience is very limited, so don't take that as any indication of my depth of experience or the quality of snow for that matter. Along the way, I was just snapping photos, metering every chance that I could get, and trying to basically overexpose and then bracket some shots higher and lower in order to figure out where the best point of exposure was. The only downside is that I don't remember what the settings were for some of the things that I was shooting. What I'm going to say is generally overexposed, right? And you can definitely tell the ones that are underexposed. The cool part is that the conditions were just pristine for taking photos. We had some overcast, some direct light. My challenge was actually to minimize sunlight refraction in the lens, which I don't think I quite got out of every photo. For the most part, my photos exposed correctly, which was the main objective for this trip. Some of the difficult things that I had to deal with while shooting on film was the same problems that I had shooting previously, which were focusing on objects like that are moving at fairly fast speeds and kind of obscured is really difficult. And then also, one thing I didn't mention earlier, shooting with goggles on is also insanely difficult because you have just like another layer that's in front of you. So you're actually shooting kind of like this, right? So then you have to like peek your goggles down and try to look through the helmet like this. And then what you end up having is a bunch of fog that develops between like the viewfinder and then you inside your own goggles, which is really annoying. I mean, the skiing was incredible, great, beautiful views. Honestly, some of these are the best ones that I did. I also took digital photos as well to complement my analog photos, just in case the film didn't. Analog photos, I hate saying that. I don't know why I do. Film photos. I took some digital photos to complement my film photos in order to make sure that I had something to take away. Because at the very least, if these didn't develop right, or if I just totally missed the mark on exposure, then I would have something that I could always keep in my mind for the future. Highly recommend going to Mayflower Gulch. Like I said, it's easy access from the road. You can get up and down. It was pretty quick. I think total tour time for one lap was like maybe an hour and a half, and that includes stopping and navigating and figuring all these other things out. If you were to do it, you could probably do like 4 laps in 2 hours if you really wanted to, which is great timing. It also depends on your lung strength, because I think I have to see what the elevation of that area is, but I think we were topping out at like 12, 13,000, so feet, 12 or 13,000 feet, because you feel like a mountaineer even though you're not. Also, shooting in black and white to learn about exposure really did help, because I think with the color there's too many variables, especially when you start scanning. Like I scan on this Epson V600, and what ends up happening is it just takes a lot more precision and just tweaking to make the colors match up, and I kind of want to eliminate that in terms of developing like a good end product photo. And so having the black and white, all I did was scan in grayscale, and then all I worked with was exposures and basically just the curves tool as well, and I think it turned out great. I'm pretty satisfied with how it came out. However, I think the next time around I would really like to focus on focusing better on the subject as they are positioning themselves. I found that a lot of my framing and composition were mediocre at best, and I was just very concerned with trying to get the subject in frame, but there was nothing creatively interesting about it. So that was a little disappointing. I'm happy with the only objective I really cared about. It's good to be making videos again, and I hope to publish another one shortly. I'm not going to make that promise. Why would I ever say that? That is horrible.
Your new F-150, I haven't seen it before.